A lot of people take on the long run, and it's like, I need to go as far as I can, as fast as I can. And that's where a lot of people fall apart, is because as soon as you've got that mindset, it's going to be a sufferfest. That's exactly what you strap in for. And long runs don't have to be mentally exhausting to even get out the door.
Welcome to the Obstacle Dominated podcast, the show for athletes who want to become their best and inspire others in the process. Here we're going to dive deep into training tactics, race strategy, nutrition, mindset, and everything required to dominate the course and your life. Whether you're tackling your first race or already standing on podiums, this is where you can level up. There is always room for improvement, and it is time to push through those barriers and step it up a level, breaking both the physical and the mental walls to keep progressing. I'm your host, Matt Roberts, OCR athlete, coach, and guide to those committed to becoming healthier, happier, stronger, faster, to maximize their human potential now and always. I'll also be joined by the coaching team who are walking the walk, competing, staying current, and holding themselves to excellence. They are leading by example to inspire others to rise. We also bring on guest speakers who share real stories, real lessons, and proven methods that deliver results in performance, health, and mindset. Let us begin.
Yo, Matt, how's it going, man? Welcome back to the UK. I know last time we spoke, you was about to travel back this end. How things going since you've been back?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of good to be back. And then, within a few days, it's dark, grey, cloudy. Something that's going to take a little getting used to for sure. But yeah, I mean, travel was pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Literally, yeah, delays. Then I was going to miss connecting flight, and yeah, it was something that was actually kind of good, because like for me, a few years ago I'd have panicked and just the world's against me and all that, and I was like, it's future Matt's problem. It's like I will get back at some point. So the main thing was getting there safely, and that to me is the highest priority. So yeah, like eventually it all worked out. A few delays, I had to pay a few extra quid here or there, but yeah, made it back, which is the most important thing. And yeah, for me, I love those kind of challenges. Not at the time, because yeah, it can be quite stressful, but yeah, it's when you look back and see how much you've evolved over a few years from the challenges that we faced, yeah, it's pretty powerful. So that was kind of my reflection on the whole sort of experience.
Yeah, it really does. It shows where you're currently at based on what you've overcome and the growth that's really come from that as well, just to kind of handle the situation. I think part of that for me is like becoming wiser through lived experience, and like you have when you travel, it's like, well, now when I travel, I make sure that I have enough time. So if stuff like that does happen, like when I went to Costa Rica back in 2024, I ended up going there like a few days before, and exactly the same happened to me. Like I missed the connecting flight. It wasn't even my fault. We were just sat on the runway for ages and literally landed in the airport, and then they closed the terminal, which was literally like 2 down from where I was at. I could literally walk there in like 90 seconds. And they closed it, and I was like, oh, all right, well, I'm obviously not meant to be on this flight. And it's just kind of like, so I think it's like, one, going through that experience, and then two, it's also the growth that comes from that experience as well, but then also just like surrender and acceptance, but also constructing life in a way where actually you've got these buffers. And something I'm actively practicing now is making sure that I've got enough time either side. Even like traveling here, I'm now at the track about to train. I was going to try and squeeze in going to an extra place, and a previous version of me would have done that. But actually, I was like, no, actually, let's center myself before hopping on here, and then the energy is going to be a lot better rather than jumping on and you're flustered and whatever else. So it speaks volumes, and I think it's a good reminder for anyone listening to this as well. Just optimization. That's actually what we're going to talk about on this call as well. It's like optimization. We're going to talk a lot about the long run and what's contained within that, and typically why we do that and why we apply that as as we do, and in the structure and the different sort of formats. So we'll look at duration, the intensity of it. We'll look at like combination of different progressions that can be included in it. Things would suggest that you didn't do, and if you do those things, then we're looking at the frequency of when we do those things, and why not, and why to do and avoid certain things as well. Before we dive into that, was there anything else that you wanted to add on the sort of intro?
No, I think it was a good way to start things off. Like, perfectly. A little bit of drama and then straight into how we can actually overcome it. So yeah.
Yeah, real life. Yeah, it is exactly. It's life, isn't it? And yeah, we're having to do a lot of different things whilst training. But if we optimize that, actually, it feeds into our training, and vice versa. I've had a couple of good conversations with people recently, in particular men, actually. And I used Jimmy's story as an example. You know, when Jimmy first joined us, he went through like this rapid body transformation, which led on to him feeling more confident, and that led through to like gaining ground in his work life, in his career, in his relationships as a parent, all that sort of stuff. So it's like the physicality is a good segue to improve other aspects of a life, and that feeds onto our mindset, and vice versa. And that's why the sport we do is so great on so many different levels for the construction of the physicality and the mentality and everything that's contained within that. But then also that positively impacts lifestyle as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, let's dive in. So I think probably best place to start is looking at like what the long run is and what it's actually for. Then we'll look at where people are going wrong. Then we'll look at how we actually structure our long run. And then we'll go into why we don't blend everything all of the time. I'm releasing a post later today as well, talking about the independent and individual sessions that we typically have on a 7 to 14 day training sort of period block. But then also we're not crossing them over all of the time. All right, and there's some ins and outs of that as well. All right, because training works best when the right system is trained at the right time, at the right intensity. Okay, and the opposite is not what we want to do. All right, we want to make sure everything is factored in, but then there is an effective crossover rather than haphazardly training. Yeah, and then we'll close out with some takeaways on the mental standpoint and bits of the education. Cool. Matt, do you want to dive in? I mean, you're an expert on the long run. I mean, you're the guy that typically runs the longest and the furthest in the most wide array of different environments. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, great place to start off is actually like what we consider a long run to be. And I've noticed through Strava or people's social media feeds that it's a badge of honor. So a lot of people take on the long run and it's like, I need to go as far as I can, as fast as I can. And that's where a lot of people fall apart, is because as soon as you've got that mindset, it's going to be a sufferfest. That's exactly what you strap in for. And long runs don't have to be mentally exhausting to even get out the door. So like a lot of my training and a lot of what I do with our athletes is actually a combination of running and walking. I want to be able to wake up and go, okay, I've got to do this amount of time today, and not actually like so yeah, the body's not going to reward you for that because you haven't got an intention behind it. Or for a lot of people, it's just, okay, let's knock this out as fast as I can. So that's going to stress the body in too many ways. And again, and that's going to suffer or lead on to other training sessions where it's going to bleed in, and effectively future training sessions may be affected by that mindset. So that's kind of where I want to start things off, is actually having the intention behind it and lead into it.
And I think with that as well, it's understanding the the primary role of the long run. And ideally for the sport we do want to run with it. I mean, you could do a long aerobic session in its place, which would serve a good purpose for a lot of the things that I'm going to say now. But really, it is specifically conditioning the body with time on the feet. And that's another thing I mentioned as well. It's like you saying about people wearing the distance as a badge of honor. And I see it all the time where it's like, yeah, I just done a 61-kilometer run. It's like, great. Okay, well, why? Like, what was that? What was that part of? Like, did you have intentions for different parts of it, or was it just I'm going out there and racking up some distance and not really understanding like catabolically what that's going to do, meaning like what the cost of that's going to be through breaking your body down and the impact of that for literally weeks to come. We typically see a month to 6 weeks for people to recover off of big hard efforts like that from a nervous system standpoint, and also from like a musculoskeletal standpoint as well. So anyway, primary roles. We want to build an aerobic base. Okay, absolutely key.
Just want to jump in really quickly with something that I was thinking about as well. A lot of people follow like ChatGPT or some sort of AI program when it comes to building something like that. So I did a little test a little while back, and I had a 100-mile race that I was considering to enter with a certain amount of time in which to be able to do it, and build up my training effectively. For that reason, I actually didn't do that race, because I went into ChatGPT just out of curiosity. I was like, okay, I'm this athlete doing this amount of training. I've had this many years experience. These are my previous races. And then I went into very finite details with kind of what I've been doing for the last months, how much intensity work. And it generated me this, I think it was a 12 or a 16-week training block. And I looked at the numbers on there for my long runs. And I started arguing back with it, because I was like, yo, you expecting me to do ultramarathon after ultramarathon? And a lot of people will buy into it because, AI is ingenious, and, we can use it for like so many benefits, but people take it on face value or don't ask the right questions. And as a result, that can lead to overtraining, training at the wrong intensity as well. So something to really consider was that. What kind of training mileage that it was being pumped out, and whether or not you can actually have the conviction to say, no, actually, that's not right for me.
Yeah. I mean, these are great tools that we can have, and it's like they call it hybrid intelligence. It's having human intelligence and then artificial intelligence, which are two independent things. And obviously human intelligence is formulated artificial intelligence, but the acceleration of the growth of learning is kind of out of control now with AI. It's just naturally doing it. But if you blend them both together, like Matt's talking about, then there's this hybrid intelligence in the middle. But even with this, we still need to have the human intelligence independently. And I wrote a post last week talking about Garmin and apps and other watches and stuff like that. And it's really, really fascinating. Like whatever you do or don't put into the watch, it analyzes that precisely, and it doesn't read between the lines. But the human approach is like our rate of perceived intent or rate of perceived exertion for a particular workout. But apps and Garmin don't see that. Even if they track HRV, they don't know the internal details. And HRV is only one standalone thing as well. Like, for instance, with my Garmin, I don't wear it to sleep. I wear it for my training sessions, and that's it. I haven't even got it on now. So it's giving me data from my workouts, but then also it's giving me data from my recoveries, which it doesn't truly know about, because one, I'm not wearing it to sleep, and two, I'm not wearing it the second for the rest of the time. So we use this technology to our advantage to give us perspective, but that never overrules the human intelligence aspect, which is like predominantly body led, is what we want it to be. Like, how are you actually feeling, or how did that feel? Like, how do I feel at the end of that? Could I perform that effort again? And often these apps and watches don't do this. And another one that we frequently hear people using is the app Runner. And they're like, yeah, well, I tapped it into Runner and this links up to my treadmill and this, that, the other. And it's like, great, it gave me these projections. It's like, okay, how does that feel when you step on the treadmill for week number 2? It's like, oh, well, my body's a little bit sore, but it's saying hit this mileage at this pace. Why? Because it's programmed to do that. But the other aspect of this, and this is primary role number 2, is of the long run, is to improve efficiency and economy, which is your physiological or your physical conditioning, okay, which takes place. And like I've mentioned on a few other episodes now, I haven't added any progressions into my training for, this will be the 10th week, in fact 11th week, that I haven't added any progressions. Why? Because I need to allow my body time to be specifically conditioned to the training load and intensity. If I add more on, my body will just, well, essentially break. I'll get niggles, I'll get injuries forming. But often what we can do is just go, okay, well, that felt good, I'll add a little bit more. And this has been what I'm talking about, is being intuitive and body led with all of this. All right, so use the technology. We live in this beautiful day and age where we've got technology, we have science, we have a lot of research, but don't let that bypass the way that you're feeling, and certainly don't compare yourself to other people and let the ego get in the way and rack up distances as a badge of honor. For my long run, I've been doing 90 minutes, no more than 90 minutes for about 4 months now, and that's it. And when I go to increase my zone 2, it's not going to be within my long run, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. Anything else to share on that, Matt?
Nah, I pretty much covered it there.
Great. Okay, let's continue with the roles. All right, so just summarizing again. Number 1, build the aerobic base. 2, improve efficiency and economy. So it's like the conditioning of the body, but then also what's within the body, the precise energy system that we're looking to train, or energy systems that we're training during that. Mitochondria density, huge. All right, this is only actually developed, or predominantly developed through aerobic base building training. Fat utilization, supports recovery in between harder sessions, and also it increases durability with low nervous system cost as well, whereas high intensity sessions will have a little bit more of a nervous system cost. And also from a longevity standpoint, if this is done correctly, something I'm diving into now is how different pathways or different lifestyle habits actually form a base for longevity. And zone 2 aerobic base building is absolutely huge for it, for all the reasons we've listed. But there's something else called NAD, which is promoted, which is kind of a thing to allow us to be youthful, actually comes through this as well. So if we're overreaching, then it becomes a chronic stressor. If we're doing it at the right dose, it boasts a lot of benefits. And we had a guy come along to our training yesterday, first time that he's come to do a run with us. And yeah, that was really fascinating. Because he hadn't actually really heard of the specifics of zone 2, and the way that he was tracking it was actually through my zone. And as soon as we set off, I was like, come with me for a little while, just want to kind of assess, and didn't even get to the other end of the field. And my zone said he was in zone 5. And it's like, you're not in zone 5, all right. But and then went back to body-led training. How are we gonna track this if your my zone saying you're a zone 5 and you don't actually have anything on pacing using the nose? And it's a big thing that we talk to our guys about. All right, if you can't nasal breathe, you're going too hard for this particular style of training. And also conversational pace. If you're having to gasp for air, you're going too hard. So that's true aerobic training. But then what shows up for a lot of guys is the mindset. Well, we get it all the time, especially for new people. I remember speaking to Mitch last week when I think he even mentioned it on the podcast. He was like, he rang me up or messaged me, and he was like, "What the fuck are you having me do here? Like, I'm walking on this run." I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Just trust the process and stick with it." And there's been many people over the years, and then they're like, boom, they're running the same route a lot faster, a lot more efficiently. And like I mentioned with my zone 2, I've been doing the assessments over the past couple of months. And in a 12-week period, I added 750 meters onto my aerobic assessment. Huge. All right. So I'm running faster. I'm running with the same perceived exertion, and that's translated over to being able to run more distance. So these are obviously more benefits to why the long run is important, or why to do it in this particular way, and what it actually does.
Yeah, there's a few more benefits to it as well. It's quite fascinating when you actually look into it a little bit. But a lot of what people struggle to do is actually find what that feels like for them. So, like to break it down for people, like you should be able to keep a conversational pace like throughout the course. I.e., just imagine someone's right next to you and you're just having a conversation. If you're having to take in more breath, that's a sign that you're pushing the intensity too hard. And yeah, it should feel like controlled and rhythmic breathing. So if you start gasping or you strain a little bit, again, you're just pushing too hard within that. So slow it down. Yeah, but it's going to probably feel like an alien concept for a lot of people. But yeah, and if you're unsure of that, it's like whatever you think is you might be going slow already, or go a little bit slower, and chances are that is where your true zone 2 is at.
Yeah, great points. And this is being body led. So obviously, like we said, we want to use the apps, we want to use the data. This is going to give you approximates, but a lot of that is going to come from how you use the app. Like what will never change, even if there are variables. But this is the beautiful thing, all right? If I drink coffee and then go and do a zone 2, my heart rate might be 5 or 10 BPM higher if I've eaten breakfast within a couple of hours of doing that. Or like we've been having conversations with a couple of guys. I had a conversation with one of the guys last week about fueling intra-session and the best ways to do that. Because if you dump a lot of carbohydrates in the system, well, the body then has to process that fuel that has been dumped into the gut, which means blood flow is going to need to go there, and that's going to take it away from the working muscles, and it's going to have this internal conflict, and that can lead to a drop in performance, cramping, gut distress, all these sorts of things. So it's really, really important to understand. And I mean, this is other benefits to the long run. You get to test your race kit, you get to test your nutrition out. There's lots and lots of different reasons for it, but it's understanding the variables within that. But if every time we go out and do a long run, we forget the watch, we leave that at home, and we go body led, and we nasal breathe, or we use the talk test as an example to gauge exactly where we are, that's a true telltale sign that you're in the correct zone. Therefore, you're training the correct energy system. I ran with my nephew yesterday on the long run, and we got to the turnaround point and was like, wow, we got here quick, because we were just chatting. We were just having a good time out in nature and running, and just had like this little adventure. And like the tide had come in along the river from the ocean, and we're having to like wade through stuff. So it was just like we were just present and focused and just having a lot of fun with it. And then 90 minutes later, we're back at the obstacle course. It's like, wow, okay. It's really, really cool when you don't look at the data too much and you just stay in tune with yourself. But then also talking about the group training that we have, like, I mean, I train with a number of different guys at different levels. There is never the ego involved. Like if someone's like I was saying with this guy that joined us yesterday, he dropped back into the other group as soon as we looked at the stats and go, okay, well, this is actually going to be more beneficial for you. Otherwise, you can try to keep up with us and you're going to be going far too hard. And vice versa. There's been people that come along with us and they're like, well, actually, I need to step it up a little bit, or actually what I need to do is I need to drop back today. So these are the variables, and listening to the body. I mean, you can look at the data and that can tell you how primed you are based on that, but how are you actually feeling? And then that's kind of dissecting it into how's the nervous system feeling today? Is that primed? Is that good to go? And the other side of it, where's the physical conditioning at? And last Monday, I took Monday off. Why? I felt good. My body felt good. My nervous system felt good. I felt like I had energy, but my body was sore. So I didn't go and choose to train. And actually, I managed to complete all of the training sessions, bar like a squat and some reverse lunges on my strength training session. And here I am today, about to hit the track after a 4 days week, going into the final on week of my training block before my 5K race in a few weeks. So it's being flexible and adaptable, but being in tune with our body and using the data to the best of our ability is really, really key. Anything to add on that, Matt? Okay.
No, all good.
All right. So just to summarize a key point on what the long run is actually for and its roles, is really here to make everything else work better, not to replace everything else. And what I mean by that is we're not trying to do multiple things during it. All right, we're sticking to the precise energy system that we really want to target, and also we are doing it in the right dose, either by time or distance, that actually feeds into the bigger picture goal. And not like ChatGPT says, where you need to be running a marathon every single week or whatever else, which can often be too much. My mileage is really, well, it's moderate. It's not high. I'm only doing about 40 kilometers per week at the moment. Okay, and I know people that are open races or age group races that are doing 60 kilometers per week. Like right now, my body isn't conditioned to be doing that amount of mileage. It wouldn't actually be beneficial for me and my goals. Therefore, I'm not doing it. And I don't actually enjoy running that longer distances, and that's why my long run's only about 90 minutes as well. So I start to get bored if I'm encroaching over the 2-hour mark. So it's optimizing everything, practically, physically, mentally, to make sure that we set conditions now so that we can continually go on and progress year in, year out, versus ramping up to 60 kilometers now, breaking myself, taking some time off, and then ramping it back up to 60 kilometers again, and just stuck in this vicious cycle. Okay. Cool. So I mean, there's a number of ways to do this, but obviously we want to know where we're at, current condition. We want to know what the target race or races are. We want to make sure that we're categorizing these races, and then what that does is gives us an understanding of what we need to bridge the gap with, and whether it's realistic or not. I really like to do time-led training. Matt, I know sometimes you're a little bit different, and obviously it depends on the athlete that we're working with. But I like to use duration as a marker to track my training, even within strength training, to be perfectly honest as well. Yeah, do you want to maybe speak to that as well, like differences between like duration-led, time-led, versus like
again, like
distance-led
it's
training?
going to be individual as to what your goals are. Sometimes, yeah, we need to be more distance based, because ultimately, if you're, especially for like some of the athletes that I work with who are doing longer races, i.e., like 100 milers and things. Now, obviously, we're never going to get anywhere close to that in the training, but we can also factor in races which all benefit them, so they get the race environment, and it's a structured thing. Whereas sometimes time is more effective because it's all about time on feet. So I'll do a blend between some of my athletes depending on where they're at in the training blocks and where we need to get them to, whilst not overloading. So I find that time-based training is very effective for gradually increasing. But sometimes if I've got a like a timeline for them and they're 100% all in, then distance becomes quite effective within that. However, it's not just go out and run at zone 2 for this amount of time. This is where the time on feet's just vitally important. So they might be out for 6 hours and only do 30 kilometers, but it's all about that time on feet depending on what their race is. So I'll blend a little bit of both into my training and also with the people that I work with, but it is very, very individual as to like what we're trying to achieve within that. Does that sort of cover kind of what you wanted, or do you want a little bit more on that, Matt?
No, that's good enough. Yeah, I think it's just giving the different perspectives of that. Yeah, and I think one other thing is the duration has worked for me so well over the years because of the varied terrain that I've operated on. Yeah, when I was predominantly living in a flat place, like I would actually go for distance. So like my long run would be around about 20 kilometers, and then that would translate to a certain route that I chose and whatever else. But then if I applied that when I lived in the mountains, it was like, well, actually it's going to take me twice as long to be able to run that distance. So if what we do fundamentally is go, okay, well, this is the duration that we need to be time on feet, and we need to aim to spend as much time within this particular zone to train this particular energy system, then it's not about distance. Like you could run 10 kilometers in a 2-hour run and achieve exactly what you wanted to do in a half marathon distance as such. So it's understanding this rather than, okay, well, I'm training for a beast, so I've got to run beast distance. I know, even though I'm preparing and going to be fully prepared after this sharpening phase to predominantly do very well at 5 kilometer distance, but I know based on the amount of training that I'm doing, the duration spent in each energy system, I could go out now and set a PR in a half marathon, even though that's not the main target.
Yeah. Want to just go back and say, like, that was a great point that you've made. And a lot of people, when they look at mileage or whatnot, they won't consider the terrain within that. So yeah, obviously 20k in the mountains, well, that's going to have a huge stress on the body. But if you were to do 20k on the flat road, and this is something that for each race, like, have the foresight and go, okay, well, for me personally, when I do quite a lot of mountain races and high altitude and things like that, and that's something I have to consider into my training, is like, okay, what is it, or where do I need to be training the most, which is going to benefit me for this particular race. And a lot of people do flat ground training because it's easier, because they can get more mileage done and then be done with that run. But when in reality their race might actually be in the hills and the mountains, and that in its own right is like not the best way to attack your training, because 20k on the mountain, 20k on the road, two different stimuluses. And even like, I look back to my last big race, which was like a 50 miler, and there was what, 4,000, just under 4,000 meters of elevation across the whole race. But I think it was 1,200 meters, so it was literally 1.2 kilometers uphill in the space of 7 kilometers just straight. And the effect that had on me, even though I'd trained specifically, sort of like trying to get to the mountains as much as I could, that was like just going up and down a mountain. Like, I went straight down, flat ground for about a kilometer, then straight back up. And that hit me so hard. And I'd already sort of like looked into the training element and how I could do that. So if you are looking to plan around your races, make sure you know what elevation, what gradient you're going to be operating under, and train that energy system as well. But also with like hill repeats, well, not so much hill repeats, but like longer duration, add in a little bit of elevation to your hill training. So yeah, that was a great point that I'll just touch on a little bit more.
Yeah, indeed. And also with this as well, I don't want to diverge too much, but it's like, if you don't have access to like hills or mountains, like this particular part of the country I live, I don't have access to any of that. Like, there aren't actually any massive hills. And on a long run, I probably get maybe 150, 200 meters. And whereas previously doing my long runs, I'd be running for like 2 hours and get like 40 meters a gain. It's like shocking. But you may or may not have heard the saying before, but like, speed training is the same as uphill training. So although I'm not training for hills as such, I'm doing a lot on the fast. And equally, if you live in a very mountainous area, then the uphill work is your speed work. But there's ways to incorporate it in. Like, I've done a number of my long runs actually on the treadmill and just put it on a very small gradient. And in some cases, I'll hit 600 to 800 meters worth of climbing. That's great. It's training my body to go up, but it's not as good as training on the trails, even if it's more flat, because I'm getting the ups and the downs. And that's something that can be overlooked with this type of training, especially like if you're using too many machines or you're training on the flat, is the descent work. And the descent work, especially hard descents, is something that needs to be trained, even if it's in small doses on the long run, because otherwise you get to doing a race like Capron or Killington, or even some of the UK races, which really aren't that hilly, you will really struggle when it comes to it. And this is another thing, like, one of the things we're going to talk about is too much variety, and it's something we always talk about. But actually, we do need elements of variety, but that variety comes from the same stimuluses every single week in small doses, versus having too much variety within every training session every week, which actually gives us no consistency and no regularity through the repeatable training. Let's talk about where people can go wrong. There has been, well, and there are numerous ways that we can dissect a long run. Something we often do is we don't just do the easy paced effort of the long run. Often there'll be a form of progression, sometimes within it, sometimes maybe before it, very, very rarely, but most often at the end of that training stimulus. So how that looks for me currently is I'll run for 90 minutes easy, and then at the end of that, I'll go straight into an OCR session. Now, with this, that is still targeted. It isn't like I'm running at race pace for 2 hours or something like that. All right, and we know that there are methods that are used out there where people go and do an OCR long run, where they run for 2 hours at race pace with obstacles. But from our perspective, you're not training the energy system that you want to be, and also that's going to be highly costly in terms of like the impact that that's going to put on the body. So everything we do has an intent and a reason why we train specifically at that. All right, so yeah, again, 90 minutes easy for me, and then I will use perceived exertion for up to 20 minutes. Normally I'm doing about 2 kilometers on the obstacle course afterwards, and that will be practicing obstacles under fatigue, and really working on efficiency, okay, which is what we really want to do. We don't train obstacles fresh all the time. We train them under fatigue. And that's why it's a beautiful thing to add it to the end of the long run, because I'm already fatigued, because I've got maybe 15, 16 kilometers on my legs. And then I go and do a couple of kilometers on the course. So even still, all in all, that's only about 17 kilometers in about an hour and 50 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, so not huge amounts of distance, but I'm getting a good zone 2 benefit. I'm getting a good benefit of working on the efficiency and the economy, working on the mitochondria, fat utilization. Also, it's not too impactful, which means today I can get up and run a hard session on the track. I don't feel fatigued. All right, but if we go a little bit too hard, then that can be adverse. And equally for the progression that's added on to the end is a race sim. But it doesn't mean that I'm running full pelt for the whole time. I'm practicing entry of the obstacles, fluidity of the obstacles, exit, getting back up to race pace. And that was actually really hard yesterday, because the past 2 or 3 weeks it's been dry at the obstacle course, and yesterday it was even quite challenging to get across Z wall. I fell off once. The monkey bars that I'd done a couple of times, I almost didn't make it to the end. So it was even within that, no other variables changed. 90-minute long run, 15, 20-minute race pace. The course was actually harder in numerous ways because of the conditions. So that in itself is a variable. And if we're like, well, I didn't do very well on the course today because I couldn't be as fluid, whatever. It's like, no, I see that as a good thing. It challenged me in a new way that made those particular parts of the course challenging. But this isn't what we do for everyone's training. Sometimes, and for many periods of time, I've done maybe like a race pace interval at the end of the training session. That could be 10 minutes, that could be 15 minutes, that could be 20 minutes, to replicate the intensity of, well, the back end of being out on the course for a long period of time, but then also being able to perform at the back end of that for a sustained period of time. And really that can replicate, just think of like a Spartan beast where you've ran the distance and then you come into the obstacle gauntlet at the end where there's maybe a barrage of 6 to 8 obstacles that you have to get through. So not only does it train the physical body, it trains the mindset along with that physical body to go, hey, you've still got more in the tank because you've paced yourself, you've had the discipline to do that. You know that you've got the conditioning to be able to do that, to step up into another gear when it comes to that stage of the race. All right, so it doesn't necessarily need to be an obstacle race sim. You could do this running. You could do body weight exercise. You could do some lifts. There's numerous things that we use, and often that's based on what the guys have got around them. But regardless of whatever it is, you are not annihilating yourself at the end of it. And one of the notes I've written here is that the thing you want to say at the end is, could I do more at the end of this session? And if the answer is no, you've overreached. If the answer is yes, then you've operated right where you need to be. Like if you could do an extra couple of laps of the course, or you could run for an extra 20 minutes, half hour, you've optimized the intensity appropriately.
Yeah, touch a little bit more as well is like not everyone's going to come in at the same level as where Matt is now, because he's been putting the years of training in. So it's like very small, consistently adding progressions or holding back and whatnot. So yeah, like this is a lot of what he's doing within his training, but not like not everyone's going to be at the same level or be able to do as much within their training sessions as well. So this is coming like everyone's individual, and this is why it's important to have like baselines. Know exactly where you're at, so you don't overdo it, because a lot of people will listen in and go, oh cool, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this. Well, effectively, yes, like training the energy systems is very important, but the durations and the intensities is something that you need to consider as well, and how well you're able to recover, what your lifestyle is like. So there's so many variables on top of it, like how long you've been training consistently for as well. Okay, so yeah, like for sure, these are like valuable points, but it's like consider where you're at and how much you can actually add into your training where it becomes effective. And this is where sort of looking back, reviewing the progress that you've made. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to start off here, I'm going to do this, and then, okay, yeah, I feel okay-ish or I'm sore. These are going to be like markers that your body are giving you. So make sure that, one, you listen to your body, but also apply consistency within the training so that you can actually maximize the results that you'll get over time. Okay. And also looking at it from a long-term point of view. So it's not like what I can achieve this season. It's like, what can I be achieving 2, 3, 4, 5 years with the consistency? So yeah, just wanted to open up a little bit on that one.
And all of the inputs matter here as well. Yeah, if it's not sustainable here and now, it's not going to be sustainable in a matter of months or years. So it's like, yeah, again, set conditions now, how we mean to go on. And because all of these inputs matter, it's always looking back to like, how can I optimize? Like, it's never like, what do I need to get rid of, or what more do I need to do? And even having a conversation this morning, one of the team members was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Stop getting pulled into, I need to like think about this and that. It's like, imagine if you just kept doing what you're doing right now for the next 6 months, 12 months, where's that going to put you? Great. A lot of things are going to be automated. They're going to be second nature. They're going to be solidified. Then that allows room for more to be put in. But I'm constantly optimizing my training. I'm not, like I said, looking to do more. I'm looking to optimize, and I haven't added any progressions for many weeks now. If anything, I'm more mindful of what not to do and why. A little thing when I get to the progression at the end of my long run is like, I'm very mindful. Like it's almost laughable on some of the obstacles, like the walls. I'll kind of just like climb up them slowly, step over, lower myself down. And it's like, why? Because I don't want to jump from the top of this 6-foot wall and hammer my knees and therefore hammer my quads through that impact, because all that matters. What am I actually practicing here and now on this obstacle course? Stress, I'm practicing the conditioning under fatigue of entering and exiting obstacles, with ease. The fluidity. I'm not seeing how much impact my body can take here and now. I will save that for race day. I'm conditioning myself specifically right now to be able to handle that, but I'm never doing that in training. I probably won't run a full beast distance in training. I will save that for the beast. If I do run the duration that I'll be out for a beast, then I won't meet the intensity that I run a beast for. Why? Because that will actually take away from training, because I'm going to need to recover. And yet again, that's optimizing what I'm doing in terms of the race calendar. So the way we optimize is about like what we're not doing, and also what we are doing at the same time based on that. All right. So think specifically, but don't think, okay, well, I've got a Spartan Beast coming up. I need to be that specific that I need to do an OCR long run that has an obstacle every 100 meters and then do that for 2 hours or 2.5, 3 hours, because that's going to be too much. Too much on the body, too much on the mind. You're probably going to show up resistance, batter your body. And if you continually do that, it's only going to open up to injuries as well. Okay. So
Yeah, within those
in time
sessions
and
as well,
place.
you're more likely to dive into, move through the different zones, which takes away from the overall training as well. So once you go from a run into an obstacle, look at it out on course previously. You go from like zone 2 to zone 4 pretty quickly in the space of obstacles, especially if it's up hills. Then you go into a couple of carries. Yeah, that can really shoot up the heart rate. So you're going to take away from the overall training objective. And the long run is the long run. It's building that base. It's building that mitochondria. Can't get my words out.
That thing.
So yeah, it's really important that you keep it as what it is, because that's what's going to build that base, and that's going to carry over to the threshold work that you do as well. So yeah, like keep the long runs as what they are, and then when it comes to the race sims, keep them for what they are as well.
For sure. All right. So just be aware of this. All right. Going back to the core reasons why we train this, easy training zone 2, all the benefits that come off that. If you're not in that, then the systems are blended instead of being actually trained independently. And the cost of this is going to be high on the nervous system, the joints, the connective tissues, longer term recovery, and then there'll be spillover fatigue into other key sessions. All right. So optimization is the absolute key here. So yeah, just be aware of that. Cool. Also, we talked a little bit about the structure. We do typically add progressions on, but just be mindful in the way that we do that. Really, the bottom line for this is the long run builds the engine, and then the rest of it comes from the conditioning of the time on the feet. And really, the progression at the end teaches us how to work under pressure and be fatigued whilst we flow through the obstacles under duress as such. Next point really is like why we don't blend everything all of the time. Yeah, and when we're looking at adding a race sim in, like when we do this. So anything to sort of add on that, Matt?
I was on mute for a second there. Yeah, as soon as we start to add different elements, and we confuse the training, so we're not actually having a specific outcome for each. There's no what's the word? There's no line between it. It all becomes blurred. So that's when you start to train the wrong energy systems at the wrong intensity for the wrong frequency of time, and that's where a lot of people lose a lot of potential progress, because there's no defined line. And you should be spending a certain amount of times within each energy zone, depending on what it is that you're looking to progress within. So it's really important that you have the fine distinction. So like your long runs, for example, they need to be like nice and easy. You should be finishing the long run going, actually, yeah, I could do more. Okay. And if you can't do that, then you're pushing at the wrong intensity, or you get back in and you've ruined the rest of your day. You can be sore for a couple of days after. That's not beneficial training, because chances are, if you're trying to build consistency and condition each of the energy systems, well, there's a lot that we're trying to do, especially with an OCR. So it requires you to be as close to fresh as you can going into those sessions. And there's so many different elements within it. It's not like running or being like a bodybuilder or like a long distance runner. Like you're trying to do a lot of different things. So if you're going like feeding into each energy, each training session a little bit fatigued, then you're not going to be optimizing that session. And keep a hard session hard, keep an easy session easy. Those are the best ways. And yeah, even within certain sessions, and you're not feeling it, you can always turn it into a skill session as well. So it's knowing when to back off the gas. But yeah, if we mix things up, then the body doesn't know exactly what it's doing, and that's when you cross zones and you won't make that progress. And ultimately, you're just wasting a lot of time and accumulating a lot more fatigue, which will then have a knock-on effect.
Yeah, so true. I think I mentioned this on other episodes as well. I've been doing between 2 and 3 hours worth of easy training per week. In recent weeks, I've only been doing 45 minutes on the bike and 90 minutes easy long run. And I've seen progress with building my aerobic base from that. Should I do more? Yeah, in months to come. Will I do more? Yes. But right now, all that would do if I added more was actually come at a cost, add more fatigue to my system, which would affect the intensity of my threshold and VO2 max efforts, which would actually take away from the progress of my fitness right now. And even like I mentioned at the start of this, I dropped 2 components from my strength training last week because actually they were causing fatigue, and that was showing up within my runs. Okay. So we want to optimize everything, and that's what we precisely do here, as a team, as a community. And that knowledge exchange is constant between us as the coaches to the people that are on the program, but equally when we jump on a group call, which we do 4 times a week, we are knowledge sharing, from experience, week in, week out, what's working, what's not, what are we optimizing, and why. So get around the right people. Like we always say it, like community is an immediate performance enhancer, because you're not just learning from expert coaches that are like going through the process and applying it. You're learning from other people at a higher level, the same level, or even people that are aspiring. But that's another part of it, is like you can be an inspiration within that as well. So the knowledge exchange is super, super important, and having the frequent touch points also gives you that reassurance and trust that the process that we are suggesting here is the most effective, rather than going, well, what the fuck do these guys know? Like, well, we've got quite a lot of experience in the journey personally from ourselves, and also working with a lot of people over the years as well. So if you want like further support and education, I mean, I attached the OCR school link below this, which is a free community that you can join, and you get more information like this. So yeah, anything else to add to really summarize on this, Matt?
Yeah, so I mean, like with training sessions, like something that's really simple, and even within my training, I've used it multiple times. It's like, ask myself really simple questions. And like one of the most helpful questions you could ask is, what is this session for? Okay. So like if you need to apply that to go into a session, like my long zone 2 run, I know that is for building base. Okay. It's going to be low, slow, and I'm going to be able to enjoy nature and everything around me in that run. Okay. So that is what that session is for. If I ask myself when it's an interval run, it's like, okay, what's the purpose of this session? And again, like it gives me that clarity. It's like, okay, that's where I can keep my ego at bay and just follow like exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in the way that I'm supposed to be doing that. So yeah, if you feel like, sometimes the training can get blended, especially because there's so many elements within OCR, just break it down. Okay, what is today for? If today's race sim, okay, cool. The purpose of this is X, Y, and Z. Fantastic. Zone 2, yep, nice and easy. Don't even think about opening the gas up, etc., etc. And you'll find that can just ground you enough where you're not mixing into different energy systems.
Super important. Yep. Good stuff. All right, I feel like we've hammered the long run to death enough for today. All right, but really, really crucial, really important, regardless of what distance you're training for. But if you do this appropriately, really it will feed into your overall progress. If you overreach on it, it's only going to take away from it. So that's why it's training with intent. But how we do that is understanding what the goal is, why the goal is the goal, the time frame between where you're at and achieving that goal is. And often that can be set externally, like, oh, there's a race coming up. Well, are you truly ready to do that ultra in 6 months' time? Most cases, no, because you haven't got the conditioning for it. Okay. And the way that you've probably been training previous to that. All that can change. Like we was having conversations with Mitch, who wanted to do World's Toughest Mudder, was like, okay, well, great. You could do that 12 months from now and get some great results. But imagine doing that the following year after 12 months more training geared towards that. It's like, oh, yeah. So it's like delaying the gratification, not to say that you don't do that event. It's just kind of reining in the ultimate goal to a more realistic goal. and then making sure current situation leads to that goal in the right amount of time without breaking you. And often when we do this, we far surpass what we thought we was going to achieve anyway. Okay, so we're not telling you to slow down. We're asking you to optimize for the greater good of your progress over the long term. Sweet. All right. Well, we'll get this out. And if you guys have got any questions or need any support, look at links below and we can go from there.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for having us on.
All right, Matt. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.
That is it for today's episode of the Obstacle Dominator podcast. Thank you for listening. If you gained value from this episode or any others, all we simply ask is you share that with one other person. This one simple share could be the breakthrough that they need to get unstuck and start making progress again, and support more athletes to become healthier, happier, stronger, and faster human beings. If you feel called, please leave a review, tap the stars, give us a rating, head over to YouTube and subscribe, or just simply follow the show. These simple action steps go such a long way in helping us reach more athletes over time, and we'd love for you to be part of that. Proximity is power. If you are an athlete that's ready to take your performance up a level, then join us over on the OCR School. This is a community where you can surround yourself with the right people as you learn and as you rise. Learn from athletes who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, getting results, body and mind, everyone from first-time finishers to podium winners and champions. Until next time, keep training hard, keep living prepared, keep dominating the obstacles in life and in competition.